Welcome, board game soloists. I'm J. Allen Riker, horror author and solo board game fanatic. And today we're talking about unique fantasy art, part 1. I found that I couldn't narrow it down past 10, so that's 2 listicles for you. Quick note, my 8-year-old son made the intro in Scratch Junior that you've seen maybe on the past couple episodes. He is beyond excited to have you all see it. Depending on which song I choose, he also might have collaborated with me on the song. He is a very talented young man. Alright, so I enjoy novelty. I love artists who take a quality and refine it into a style and then turn it into an entire world, filtering everything through this consistent difference. If something is new and different and gives a unique vibe to a game, I'm very likely to enjoy having at least one game that looks that way. I'm very into art in many mediums. It's really important to me. And sometimes I will get a game just for the art. So some of these art styles might be controversial. But understand, I'm not saying that I want every game to look any given way. But I'm very glad to have at least one game that contains art in these different styles. These games are chosen almost entirely for their art, but they are from my personally curated collection where I usually sell games that I don't enjoy, even if it's nice looking. So most of them are very good. I will briefly discuss that as they go past. But these games are not in order. While I can pretty easily rank which games I find most fun that fit into any given category that I make these videos about, I really can't do that with art styles. So these are not in order of the ones that I like the least from the ones to the ones that I like the most. In fact, this first one is an artist that you'll see that I really enjoy and respect more than almost any other. And the game he is represented by is Doom Pilgrim, with art and game design by Warclaw. I think Warclaw got well known for his art for Mork Borg. You can find his art in nearly every Mork Borg supplement that actually paid for art and didn't just use public domain. He also does metal album covers. But then he started making entire games on his own. So both the art and the game. And his best known is Doom Pilgrim. It plays like a beefed up version of Escape the Dark Castle. You can see that this looks like a very sad place to adventure, and it is going to lead to your death, 99 times out of 100. But as you go through the world, you start to learn which cards you get to choose, which card you want to set aside, which card you want to set to the bottom of the deck, because maybe it'll have something you're powerful enough to face later, or maybe it will have something that you can put to use later. This place is just dark, scary, filled with scary creatures and people. He has a lot of games with art that I just like flipping through. Here's his itch.io page, and I own almost all of these. I also have really enjoyed browsing his portfolio page. Very dark, scary, twisted fantasy art. So much wild stuff. And you know what else? I commissioned a whole bunch of covers from him, including to my latest release, a novella entitled In the Shadows of Children. I think I took him a bit out of his grimdark fantasy comfort zone, but I absolutely love the images that he made for me in my, for my contemporary horror novels and novellas. Is it a conflict of interest for me to include him on this list of top art? No. Because the reason I commissioned the covers from him was because that I love his art so much. So of course it's going to land on this games with unique fantasy art. I love his weird, creepy style. And I will say to any game designers looking for some grimdark fantasy art, check out Warclaw's stuff. He is an absolute joy to work with. I'm going to link to his pages and to my book that is currently out that has his cover below. To any horror authors out there, no, he's mine. He's mine in the horror fiction genre. Okay, so my number 4 game that has unique fantasy art is Forgotten Depths, with art by Marion Churchland. Forgotten Depths is half of a brilliant game, or it is a half brilliant game. I'm not sure which. So the game really exists in 2 distinct parts. You have a high level part, and then you drop down. You have the dungeon creation, where you lay out very nice looking tarot-sized cards and push your luck as to when to actually drop down and take care of the encounters, the combat, because the sides of the map tiles have icons on them that lead to those things, and they block your ability to place a tile. You never quite know what the restriction is going to be on where you can place a tile, and so while you don't want to go into battle needlessly, because it drains your resources, the less often you drop down to take care of these encounters, the more you risk not being able to place a tile that has certain requirements, and then that's game over. My problem with Forgotten Depths is that the combat falls far short. Not only is it totally luck-based, but the swinginess is just insane. The damage done is caused by the disparity between your cards and the enemy's cards, and you really have little control over that, and the difference can be huge and just devastating. And that's sad because it ends the game and it feels like it's pretty much arbitrary, and yet what I want to do is delve farther into these dungeons with this beautiful art and just explore this great world. I mean, the game is so beautiful and the art is so elegant that, like, realizing that the combat basically ruined it for me, like, made me really sad. When I was thinking about selling it, I was like, should I keep it just to look at it? But it's a very big game, and, how often am I really likely to do that? What I did instead, though, was I took everything from 4 Against Darkness except for, and used Forgotten Depths to do the dungeon creation and to tell me when to do encounters, and otherwise played 4 Against Darkness. In fact, I even used my existing party, no problem. That's the cool thing about the 2 phases of this game feeling so separate, is that you can, like, they're so distinct that you can lift the dungeon creation part of this and drop it into whatever solo RPG combat system that you want without missing a beat. So now I can enjoy the really fun dungeon building phase, and I can admire the wonderful art whenever I want to, just by dropping my 4AD party into it, and I really enjoy 4AD. So game number 3 with unique fantasy art is Dark Venture Battle of the Ancients, with design and art by Rob Lemon. The art in this series of games is so strange, like so disturbing. It is one of the, it's like an acid trip retro from a time that never quite existed style, and I just absolutely adore it. It's one of the few art styles in a game where it doesn't feel just like a twist on our world. It evokes the feeling of a place that operates on entirely different logic, and I think that the rest of the content does actually help back that up, which is really impressive. It almost seems unfair that somebody can make a game that's this good and also be so good at the art. But you will, I have to say, be able to make it through some pretty hard to read instruction booklets and content booklets. But that being said, this is a world that I am excited to visit and adventure in, and very, very glad that I don't live in. I missed out on the original Dark Venture, so this was my first experience with that universe. But I have since been able to back the second edition. It hasn't come yet. I believe it'll come this year. The second edition of the original Dark Venture, which is a dungeon crawler, and I'm really looking forward to it. I know that the art is going to be super solid, and I'm just wanting more of this world. So the number 2 game with unique fantasy art is Monsterlands. This is a game that not enough people have played or have even heard of. It's one of those weird instances where I can't quite figure out what went wrong. Because this video is mostly about art, I don't want to go into too much detail of how to play this game. It has dice worker placement, which is one of my favorite mechanisms. I've heard that it plays very similarly to Tidal Blades, but I haven't played Tidal Blades, so I can't confirm that. I have heard it numerous times, though. And Monsterlands is reported to stand toe-to-toe with it. Some people prefer Tidal Blades, some people prefer Monsterlands. What I can tell you is that the game is very fun and just has this wild kinetic art. Like, the heroes and monsters all feel like they're alive and in motion. And yet, despite the game being so much fun and having such great art, I'm having to show you pictures that I've personally taken of it because there's just not enough out there. I'm going to include it on some more lists and maybe do a full review so that you can see some gameplay of it. I got mine on a ridiculous sale. It's worth so much more than what I paid for it. I sat down and tried it, and it quickly became a personal favorite, both for the gameplay and just to sit and look at the awesome art. So when looking at the ephemeral art of Forgotten Depths, there's probably one question that comes to your mind, and that is, where's the beef? Well, there's one game out there that took it all, ate it all up, leaving not a single crumb, and that is the number 1 game with unique fantasy art on this list, Masters of the Universe, the board game, Clash for Eternia. So I'm just going to get defensive straight off the bat and say that a lot of people don't know what a art pedigree that He-Man has, basically the ultimate. Toy designers at Mattel were working on an action figure line for Jack Kirby's Fourth World, also known as the New Gods, but that fell through. And somebody brought in a concept for He-Man. Who exactly did that can be argued to this day, but a lot of the techno-fantasy design that the individual toy action figure designers then took to the different characters is straight from the work that they did on a toy line for Jack Kirby's Fourth World that never actually came to be. If you don't know who Jack Kirby is, he is the greatest comic book artist and creator to ever live, having created the Silver Age whole cloth, and he is such a presence that it is hard to imagine anyone surpassing him in that medium. So don't tell me He-Man isn't high culture, because some of the designs in He-Man came from a toy line discontinued based on Jack Kirby's work. Okay, it might not be the strongest argument. And anyway, you're not here for that highfalutin stuff. You don't have high cholesterol, do you? Because you might not be able to handle this much beef. No property, before or since, has put this much pure, unadulterated mass on display at the same time. Honestly, the size of these hunks could cause structural damage to your shelves. Seriously though, I am so glad that my favorite IP from the time that I was 3 years old decades later, is being so lovingly handled by the artists at Come On. They did not phone this in at all. These box covers look exactly like when people used to care about like the material for children's toys. I guess because they were bought by tended to be bought by adults. I don't know. I don't know why they made such awesome art, but this looks exactly like the marketing art that they used to make. All those decades back. Every card has an original piece of art that just makes me smile, of characters that I love. I love selecting which characters I want to be, and then having their cards in front of me. And the thing is, there is not another property with the ludicrous proportions in the art style of Masters of the Universe, which some of you might be really happy about, but I'm ecstatic to have gotten this jam-packed game full of so much awesome art, so much mass. So that's the 5 games for this video. I have 5 more ready to go, but this is called Top 5 Solo Games, so my hands were tied. Tell me about what your favorite games are with a unique fantasy art style. Let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll steal them for the next video. As always, have a great day and keep gaming solo.